Hello and welcome to the Madras Medai Podcast. Madras Medai is a festival and business expo which celebrates the equality in music and enables artists from different backgrounds to come together with a collective conscience. The podcast will cover various aspects pertaining to building an inclusive, diverse and equal music ecosystem. This series is powered by the British Council. A major challenge we face in the spaces that currently host artists is the lack of diversity in their programming. We must build future spaces for the arts, designed with the community in mind, and help navigate the challenges of discrimination and address the lack of opportunities for marginalized communities. Imagining and creating spaces that present a future that is inclusive and diverse. Since we've had a planet shut down recently due to a virus and most of us bellowing in introspection, it was essential as a festival to bring this dialogue into society as to how are we going to design or revamp our community spaces, venues and festivals to make it more inclusive and most importantly safe. I'm quite excited about this episode is because we have two amazing leaders of culture as guests. We have Dryden, who is the Chief Executive of the Oem Music Center in Belfast, a dedicated music hub for the city. Charlotte has been involved in the Northern Irish music community for nearly 20 years. She has a background in leadership, talent development, music and festival programming, venue and event management and music media. Next up, we have Ratheesh Krishnan, Head of Experiments and New Ventures at SPI Edge, a for-profit entity that nurtures a new breed of disruptive ventures through experiments built to benefit from exponential thinking and emerging technologies. Ratheesh believes in making a difference to make a living. His purpose is deeply linked towards unlocking human potential of individuals. He's most affectionately known as a mentor and a coach who yields measurable changes in the pattern of how individuals, teams, and organizations work. He leads startups and several communities in India and enables collective foresight and imagination for all. So let's jump right in. Hello Charlotte, hello Ratheesh, how are you guys today?
Hi Tenma, thank you for having me today. Yeah, not too bad. It's morning time here, so probably a little bit more tired than you.
Ratheesh.
Vanakkam from Chennai. Chennai is hot, going to get hotter. The summer vacation is up. And we are on track to celebrate 1 year anniversary of the lockdown that began on March 22nd.
I think it's essential that, one main important point is that, in 2019, I went to the Great Escape Festival. I was exposed to a lot of different types of people. I attended workshops. And the one biggest takeaway and something which I wanted to do in Chennai was a music hub. And Charlotte operates a music hub. And for the people who do not know what a music hub is, I think we need to get straight up into what exactly is a music hub and what is the purpose of it. So Charlotte, can you give us more details about it?
Yeah, okay. Very quickly then, so as you said, I manage to run a music hub. What is that? What does that mean? Very potted history then. Northern Ireland is a small place. We were coming out of 40 years of the Troubles. And sort of off the back of the peace agreement in 1998, the people started to feel a little bit more confident, a little bit safer, and there was a little bit more investment. And we've always had an amazing music scene here. Punk rock probably saved many people from the Troubles. Electronic and dance music also provided a place for people to gather in the 1980s and 90s. But what was missing was probably an industry as such, and we've always had to fight our corner alone, or we've had to travel far to be heard. So the Oem Music Center kind of came out of that thinking that we need a place to gather and to come together and to build a united community and to be more diverse. And we were inspired very much by a place in Derry, which is on the other side of Northern Ireland, called the Nerve Centre, which is a creative space and was built by a collective of musicians. So the Oem Music Center sort of came about in 2007, and our vision was to create a hub where people could network, perform, create, produce and enjoy music from all backgrounds, regardless of your religion, your faith, your race. And we do have community issues here, religious community issues, and that was a huge part of the reasoning that we need to bring people together. So the hub it's a building with a venue, with rehearsal facilities, with offices and units that businesses, small music businesses can use to work from. So within this hub, we have a recording studio, a record label, a festival. The local music college actually hires spaces from us to teach music. So there's students, music students coming through the doors every day. Pre-pandemic they were. And we have a small record label, and so all of these people are all working their own little businesses. In turn, they're paying us a little bit of rent that we can then pay our rent, because we're a small charity as well. And they're all sort of working in their own way, but because they're in this building, what's happened is they've sort of started working together. You'll find that they will collaborate with each other on festivals, or they'll share ideas for projects. And it's kind of created this little ecosystem, which is kind of now reaching out beyond the building itself. And then you'll find that the stage then becomes, the venue becomes a place where people want to showcase the music. So that's the building. And then, oh yeah, as an organisation and as a charity, we also run programmes of activities like outreach for young people and older people, programmes around music and diversity. Talent development is a huge part of what we do. Music tourism. We actually have a music exhibition in the building, which is about inspiring people about the story of music from Northern Ireland. It's the alternative history, whereas everybody sees Northern Ireland as the place where the Troubles happened. Actually, we believe there's an amazing story to tell about our music. And so you've got all of those things happening within the building. And so it's kind of become this really important cultural space in the city of Belfast, which in a part of Belfast as well, and this will bring me on to my point about the importance of creating these hubs, in a part of Belfast that 20 years ago was very dangerous to be in. There was no development, there was no art, there was no culture, it was just empty streets. So this, over the last 15 years or so, the development and redevelopment in this area has been incredible, and it's now the hub and the centre of arts and culture in Belfast. And OEA was one of the first settlers in this area, along with a couple of other organisations like the Circus School and the Black Box, which is around the corner. So that kind of, that idea of bringing people together into the one space was always one of the biggest and most important parts of our vision. And, you know, it's been a long journey, but we're kind of here now. That wasn't short, by the way. I kind of went on a little bit, but that's kind of, you know, why we exist. And that's what the hub is to us.
But I think it was the most essential points. See, from a city like Chennai, where I'm from, we don't have that many music spaces where we can bring people together and everything, because it's a very multicultural, you know, there's too many different religions and types of people and all of these things. So it's very difficult to bring people together. But there are few spots, few genres have few things. But when I heard about a music hub, because it just seemed like a music hub is the most equal sort of space to bring not just musicians, but also artists and like fans of music to it. My dream is to sort of bring this, you know, if a child decides to take up music, there should be one place where he or she, they can go in and decide what they want to do and explore that place, and where they feel safe. So I think it's essential that we got down to the details, and thank you for Charlotte. And speaking of Chennai, a very, very important person is Ratheesh Krishnan. If you want to do anything disruptive, I think you need to call Ratheesh. So as far as cultural activities are concerned, or even any other sector for that matter, any new venture. So Ratheesh.
So in the city of Chennai, Satyam Cinemas is known under the brand name called as SPI Cinemas, and the urban legend is that the SPI Cinemas is, if SPI Cinemas is a feeling, then Satyam is an emotion. We are on track to celebrate 48 years of existence, and in these 48 years, one of the things that we've realized is that we're the third largest public place in the city of Chennai. We actually have about 6,500 people walking into our screens. And we know very well that in the future, the content has never been in our control. It's in the hands of the filmmakers. And therefore, we have very little control on creating content. Therefore, what we can get right is food, customer experience, and the paramount feeling that people will actually have when they walk into our cinemas. So we had to be more than just the cinema, which is a theater. And we realized that getting that right will make a huge difference in the way we relate to audiences. And since 2010, technically 2012, since I've been associated with them, we've been responsible for quite a lot of changes in SPI looking at itself as a theatre. We started looking at ourselves as a business that grows the community in a city called Chennai, which has about 2 crore population people. So we got a lot of citizens to come and experiment and do a lot of things with us. So we became a record label, which is Think Music. We also got people to, give us ideas as to how else can we make the whole movie experience extremely great. And this very important step, which is including different parts of the society in the movie going experience, was very, very important, which is how we created something called as a Do Not Disturb show, exclusively for cinema audience. Sensory shows for people who have muscular dystrophy, autism, where the general public can watch this movie, and the format was changed, how they watch the movie. Audio descriptive shows for people who are visually impaired. And we had different types of experiences for different types of people who actually came in to watch cinema. One of the things that we did perennially well with the Think Music brand was we were very, very clear it has to be a playground. And keeping a playground at the center enables us to find different types of talent in the music space, different types of possibilities in trying it out, because we weren't doing it for money making. We had about a 4-member team and we just wanted to see what are its possibilities. And what we started doing was the low-hanging fruit of being a record label. And then we started doing independent music under Purple Note. And then we started seeing how can we be the launch pad for anyone who's new and small budget movies, where we can celebrate all types of technicians and artists. Over the years, what we've realized is that we have the ability to change the city, because about 6,500 people are walking into our premises. So we have a moral responsibility to nudge them. We have a moral responsibility to inspire them. And we have a moral responsibility to show them that we can lead by examples. And there are great examples of citizens doing different things. So we only looked at ourselves as a platform. One of the historic things that is very visible in Tamil cinema is when they want to symbolically represent Chennai, they'll actually show the central station. Technically speaking, people land there. So it's a railway station. People land there. We just wanted to be that platform where people will come and go, but in that experience of coming and going, they change an aspect about them, 1 degree shift. And that's what SPA Cinema stood for.
So I think two people from completely different backgrounds but operate in a similar philosophical idea to get the community closer. I think what essentially we need to start is, how do we foster community engagement? How do we make them engage to us? How do we build this community? And both of you all have been doing that. And we're also dealing with a lot of politics and political issues and divides among people, whether it's race or caste or creed or gender, whatever it can be. How do you engage with the community? How do you sensitize them to things and make it a wholesome experience? Charlotte, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's the big question, isn't it? Really, when you live in a society that has been so divided for so long, and also probably predominantly white as well. We are not as multicultural as other places, although that is changing, and for the good of Belfast, because it's wonderful to see a multicultural society emerging, and people are starting to come together and to learn from each other's cultures. It's certainly the biggest question that has been the biggest part of the peace process, is how do we bring people together across all areas of life? And it's sort of central to nearly all policy. But unfortunately, at political level, we're still very much divided. So it is a very difficult thing when you're still working off the basis of politically divided executive who are in a power sharing position, and that's all part of the peace process. But at the centre of it is, how do we bring people together from what they call here the traditionally divided religions, but now we are talking about all kinds of different diverse people now. I suppose for me, I think it has to be down to education, and I think we need to be the educators, and also that's why I think that the environment of a hub is so important. Shared space is incredibly important, and we've always promoted our centre as a shared space in a part of Belfast that wouldn't be considered one side or the other, and we're open to to challenge as well. So, but I think it comes down to education, and what I mean by that is we try to use the story of music to maybe bring people together or to educate people. We talk about how that the story, which was about uniting people, did bring people together during the Troubles, and later in the 1980s and 90s through dance music. Those unifying forces sort of paved the way for a much more kind of accepting society now. And we have developed some of our kind of youth and music outreach programs where we engage with communities outside of our centre by using music to bring young people together from divided communities, and that's about talking about what unites us as opposed to what divides us. And that will be things like hip hop or rock and roll, and that there's also a lot of worth in communicating through song and lyrics, and so we encourage young people to express themselves. So there's lots of different ways that we have done that. The space is one, obviously. We're an open, welcoming space, shared space for all people, and we've always promoted that. Two is we use the story of music to try and educate and inspire people, and to kind of tell people you too can live a life in the creative sector. You don't have to think about it as being for someone else. And thirdly, about being part of the arts community and being part of that drive towards trying to build a more inclusive society. We all have a responsibility, and I think the arts and music is leading the way in that. In many ways, everything we do, from music through to visual arts, is about inclusivity and promoting diversity. And I have to say, Ratheesh, what you guys are doing is fantastic. It's really inspiring, and very innovative to think about. Well, the whole world now is just staring at television screens and Netflix. How do we still, with our cinemas, bring people together? So yeah, I mean, I think what you guys are doing is great. So that that's kind of where we come from in terms of that question. It's a big question, to be honest.
Ratheesh, I want to put this up to you. How do people from marginalized communities and disenfranchised communities enter a space and be able to do music or the arts? What do you think should be done?
I have a science to it, and I've put that into use, and therefore I know for a fact that science works, especially in India. I'll just explain the science. The science begins with 3 fundamental pillars. If we don't have these 3 fundamental pillars, we wouldn't be able to process this really well. The first pillar is everyone, whether you're from a marginalized community, whether you are not from a marginalized community, whether you're educated, you're not educated, rural, urban, different forms of gender, whether you've been oppressed or you've not been oppressed, whether you're liberal, you're non-liberal, everyone seeks a learning experience. They really want to learn. At the heart of who we are, we want to learn because we want a better quality of life. And any form of art, culture, education, employment, entrepreneurship, they are all pursuits. And all forms of pursuits is a form of human expression. And in my form of human expression, where I'm expressing my potential into performance, I really want 3 things: safety, love, belonging. It's at the center. Safety, I want to feel respected. I want to feel protected. I want to feel that I know for a fact that my emotions or my physical structure or my past or my present or my identity will definitely be protected. That is safety. Number 2, love. Anyone who's around me or any kind of stuff that I do within the space or the community, I should feel that this entity cares for me. This entity makes me feel that I'm included. And that's the basis of love. And love is a huge leveler. Only if I give love, I'm going to take Tenma as an example. And let's say I am from this marginalized community and Tenma is running a community over here, or you're running a space. Only if you give me love, Will I give you permission to influence me? I will never learn from a teacher that I don't like. So therefore, liking is very important, and that's the foundation of love. Then comes belonging. Belonging is nothing but, I feel that someone will support me. It's not a lonely journey. I know for a fact that I can call someone and ask questions, and I know I want to be heard. When you get these three things right, you create the environment for a great learning experience. And when you put that learning experience at the center, it's not about space, it's not about infrastructure, it's not about leadership, it's not about anything else. Anything else that you do, these are all outcomes. And if all of these outcomes are centered around so any listener who's listening to this right now, my invitation to you is you may be running a community, or you may want to create a hub, or you may want to build a cult, or you may want to build a band, or you may want to build an organization, or you may want to change something at a city level. My first question is, we should ask, how are we creating a space for safety, love, and belonging? And in that journey, we overcome bias. We learn about the city beyond our own problems. We venture into the city and see different economic strata there. We put the needs of the audience at the center, and this audience are community members, by the way, and then design something around the fulfillment of those needs. And when we do that, what tends to happen is we don't need people to walk in. They will know that there is someone who's willing to pick you up. They will come and bridge the gap. And that has happened time and again in the city. That those people who have gone to the marginalized communities, gone to the ones who have not been included, gone to the people who have the desire and said the truth. And I have a definition for truth, which I don't know if most people know it. There needs to be unadulterated synchronization between what you think, what you say, what you do, and what you update. And if you are truthful, all the people who are not included in the society will give you trust and give it a shot. They'll give it a shot. And at that time, if they experience safety, love, and belonging, you have them as community members forever. And that's like an unprecedented, intangible science to building communal spaces or building a successful community.
You can actually reach out to SPI, guys, if you are really building something. In fact, I started this thing called Madras Medai Collective, invited about 30 people. We had this first sort of a club meeting, and from that club meeting built the Madras Medai and so many other things which happened because of that collective consciousness, and then I realized this is going to build into something large, a larger ecosystem. What I started believing in a science of small ecosystems building and benefiting a large ecosystem. Since both of you all are coming from two different ecosystems like SPI or Oem Music Center, how do all of us get connected, like in two different spaces, like probably in Ireland and in India? How do we engage with people, and how do we, individuals like me and communities together? What we are looking for is the greater good. From both of you all, what I can see is both of you all are filled with love, and obviously you all have gone through like hell and back to build this entire thing. How do small communities come together, and how do we build the more large community, environment, the feeling of belonging? So Charlotte, how do we do that?
I suppose, so the Oem Music Center, we've been here for 15 years, and we've still got work to do. We are not perfect, and I think that's you shouldn't be ashamed of that. You should always listen to the community and act on the feedback, be open to change, and we've learned lessons along the way, and we've become a more open space. We've always promoted ourselves as an open space, but one of the things I've learned is you have to make people feel included. If you are going to call your space an open and welcoming and safe community space, then you've got to make people feel they are a part of that. And I think that's all about engaging then with the people that should own this space. I am just looking after it, but really the people make this space. Now, obviously, we have to manage it on an operational level. We have to open and close and keep people safe. But we want to be able to give people a bit of ownership and empowerment, and engagement with our musicians and our young people, and anybody that wants to use the space is key. And we're actually doing a little bit of that at the moment with things like surveys and how we can improve our premises. But a couple of, I suppose, examples of where we have tried to proactively engage, because I don't know what it's like, for you guys, but here where our arts organisations are either funded or they're struggling with very low and small income, we're all in our own little bubble of work, and we're just all furiously working away trying to get things done, and we all want to work together, but we're so busy with our own little projects. Whereas if we know we can come together and create something wonderful. And I think the pandemic has actually allowed us to come together to talk about that sort of thing, and how we can be more collaborative as a different series, different areas of artistic activity. So there have been Zoom collectives of arts people that have come together, and we've had things called the Big Gathering, which the Arts Collaborative Network have put together. The music community has come together to talk more about how we can support musicians. So the pandemic has allowed us a little bit of space to talk about how we need to be better when we come back from the pandemic. But a couple of projects that we have here at the OES Center, where we really actively wanted to try and improve things for certain groups of people. We put together a program called Women's Work Festival. There were very few women in music in Northern Ireland. It didn't feel like a safe place for women. There was a lack of confidence. And we created a festival where we kind of turned the spotlight up on female talent. We showcased more women in music. We talked about it. We challenged gender issues and everything from child care to harassment. So that opened up our space, and before that program was created, under 15% of the people that used our space were female, which is quite low. And as somebody that's female working in the sector, I felt strongly about that. So I said, come and tell us what we can do. And we opened that up and said, we're opening that space for you. It's okay to come in and be a woman in music. So that really resonated with our music community and with audiences. And we find it, in the end, we find it quite easy to bring people on board. So now there were people who said, that's discriminating against men, and so you always have to be up for the challenge against that sort of thing. Equally, Northern Ireland has a lot of work to do in terms of being more diverse in the music industry. And so we've been reaching out to, the Black music community and asking them, how they would like to be more involved or how we can help them. So we've learned that we need to reach out a bit more and really listen to the community. And I think the third project where you were talking about venues, how do you get the venues and the artists and everybody to work together? And we're still working on this, but we have a festival called Sound of Belfast. And there are many festivals in Belfast, and they are all incredible, and they all showcase touring talent, or they will be festivals that bring talent in from around the world. So Sound of Belfast is about filling our spaces with the music and the artists that are here all year round, and turning the spotlight up on them. And we just pick up the phone to all the other venues and go, we're putting this program together. We want to promote you as a venue, your promoters and your artists. Let's fill this program. So that is an attempt to try and bring the city together as a music city. And again, like any city, there's work to be done there. But that's kind of our attempt to try and bring people in, not just the audiences, but the venues, the promoters, the arts sector, and the musicians. Very importantly, they have to be at the centre of it for us. We have to be guided by what their needs are. And again, we're still learning what questions we need to ask. And I always see that we have to be listening and learning and not defensive about what we do,
There's a lot to take from what you've said, and I think culturally it's a lot complicated and different for various places, and it seems so welcoming, as in whatever you said, and with all these other projects coming in, and Raj, like, you work with so many different sectors, healthcare and science and so many other things. How do you bring these ecosystems together? And I think you've sort of like intertwined most of it to SPI, and you sort of connect people together. So, Charlotte, I think I need to tell about Raj. I mean, if you go and ask him, like, hey Raj, I need this person. He's like, yes, got it. So somebody who connects people at, like he's helped me quite a bit on Madras Medai, on myself and my bands and everything. How do you make the connection as a leader? How do you give them that validation and that confidence that two people I'm going to bring, you give the same confidence to both the people and they somehow come together and make something magnificent? And how do you do that? Like with all of our stigmas and stereotypes, how do you do that?
There's two underlying philosophy, and this philosophy has been in action at least from the time I was 17 years old. I've been trying to put words together to articulate this philosophy quite well. The first one is one of the things that people start doing, at least in Chennai or in India per se, there's an individual, then there is an organization, and then there's the purpose. The point is they've got these Lego blocks mixed up. Every individual starts with a purpose, and that purpose is what they want to solve for. And what tends to happen is these individuals who come up with this purpose usually have a lack of self-worth. There's something missing in their identity, and they want to fulfill that gap in their identity by actually putting achievements and acknowledgement from the world, and therefore they go in search of a purpose and they want to stand up for it. There's nothing wrong about it, and that's how all of us move on the path of realization. But the problem is the Lego blocks they fail creating organizations in between. The individual's actual job is to serve an organization. The organization's job is to serve the purpose. And that's when the problem becomes solved sustainably. Otherwise, it's a flash in the pan. Because when the individual dies, what will happen to the purpose? The purpose will remain unfulfilled. So a lot of people in Chennai, when I'm talking about small communities, the reason why they operate in silos is because they don't think they want to build an organization. They're not here to build a system, because goals are needed if you want to win once. But if you want to win repeatedly, you need a system. An organization is a system. And people fail to create that system, and that system should adapt itself like a mobile app. Our mobiles have settings that updates and upgrades an app. So if an app gets updated on a weekly basis, we should update our organizations on a monthly basis at least, right? And that can only happen if you adapt to the coming times. In today's century, all communities need to come together in a platform because they're solving for common problems. Like exactly like Charlotte said, and I'm going to take, my first response had a little bit of history, my second response had science, and my third response right now will have a little bit of metaphor. She said it really right, and I'm going to take the Marvel Cinematic Universe as an example. It took a Thanos to have a Marvel Cinematic Universe. It took a pandemic for people to come together. It took Chennai rains, it took Jallikattu, it took Varda to bring Chennai together. It needs a massive problem for different people to come together because it should affect them equally and in different intensities deeply. Therefore, the way you bring different types of people together is to believe that there is a common problem worth solving. So when I bring a Tenma and when I bring two people together, I only talk about the common problem that only I know that both of them are solving from two different tangents. And when I show how similar you are as human beings, then I let you just play. And when that play happens, two things happen. There are people who will orchestrate that play, and then there are people who will just leave it. And orchestrating play is very important for two people from two different maturity levels to come together. So one must spend the energy and the maturity to orchestrate that play when you have two different people. Like Charlotte put it really well. In the peacemaking process, you will have people with low maturity and high maturity. It is important to play the peacekeeper's role, the goalkeeper's role, and they are the people who are trying to make that difference. In Chennai, it's called buffalo skin. But the whole point of having the buffalo skin is you remove hurt by forgiving others, and you remove guilt by forgiving yourself. And that's the principle that I have told. I know two people will have two different biases, but when they come together, a deadly combination will solve for the masses. So I'm here for the masses. These individuals are just means to that end. And what then happens is, what I've seen at least in my own lifetime, these individuals grow in their maturity levels through that project. They use it as a cleansing process. They learn different things. They pick up these things, and none of these things are in my control. What is in my control is to believe that people are actually good at their heart. Their intentions are usually very clear and they want to be doing good things. As long as you can forgive them and tell the truth and bring them together and have a lot of patience. And I might sound really meta and idealistic, but the truth is you need to have high levels of tolerance to handle bullshit, and you need to have high levels of tenacity to handle negative and unnecessary filth. And when you learn to do that with grace, it becomes an art form. So that's the beauty of an orchestrator, right? Everyone just looks at the orchestrator, but only the orchestrator knows who's playing the instrument really bad. And how can he cover that up by actually ensuring the overall music stands out right? Because that musician needs another chance, but not at the cost of the music that is being generated. So you maintain that principle and give people hope in that music.
Last few years has been the rise of progressive politics and conversations and dialogue and discourse in society. Do you think at these spaces now are people, initially they were hesitant to include everybody, and then eventually slowly things started changing? This is not pertaining to both your organizations, this is general overall outlook of what I've seen. There is also something which we need to talk about. How do you showcase culture and also to avoid tokenism, which bothers me most of the time? Oh, we need to have a female in this lineup, or we need to have somebody from the marginalized community in this lineup. How do we sensitize people in, it can be a venue or a promoter, how do we sensitize these people, that how do we curate them, have a wholesome programming? I saw this one poster. It was a huge festival. I'm not going to name drop the festival. They just said, remove all the male artists of the festival and let's see how many women are on the poster. It was 2 female artists. That's it. That was a sign of tokenism for me. Now, how do we make this experience more holistic? How do we make the programming more holistic and inclusive and diverse?
Again, this is something that we have prioritized and but not been tokenistic about it, and that's why we created women's work, to try and influence change, because we recognized that there was a huge gap and lack of confidence in women. So for me, I am very against ticking a box. Yes, of course we're very diverse, and yes, here's our black artist and our female artist. We've sort of very gently tried to influence change in our organisation. Now, I've recently had a conversation where somebody said, you need to shout about how much work you're doing. But I suppose, I'm not sure how to explain this. We're doing the work, but we're sort of gently trying to influence the change, as opposed to shouting from the rooftops about how diverse we are. Women's work was obviously quite obvious, but in that process, it started to make it influenced the way people thought about what they were doing. And I think for us that was the end game, that was the outcome we wanted. We wanted to see that difference, and it built confidence. Likewise with diversity in terms of our music community being incredibly white. Now Northern Ireland has become a much more multicultural society, and we're now starting to see this really exciting sort of black music community coming through, and they're small, but they're really important, and they're really great, and we're trying to make sure that there's an inclusion there without, as you say, tokenism. And I think we're still learning a little bit there. Now, I've been involved in anti-racism organisation through the arts for many years, and when Northern Ireland didn't have when things were a little bit different and racism was worse, actually. This isn't a criticism of the great work that's been done out there, but one of the things that sort of used to annoy me was this separation of multicultural events and local events. It was like, let's put this black performer in this box, and it's a multicultural event, and aren't we doing a wonderful thing, and it's world music. And we kind of, we wanted to try and find a way to integrate and to mainstream people, as opposed to, there's a black performer playing a multicultural event. that's definitely shifted and changed, and now we've got hip hop artists on the stage with local white hip hop artists. We've got very mixed bills of music, but that has been such a slow process, and we've had to learn and listen to, you know, our friends in the black community about that as well. And we're still a small place, and we're still trying to improve on that. So I feel like we could learn, you know, from other countries where the society is much more diverse and much more multicultural, on how we could improve on that. But we are promoting that we're an open space, and we're promoting that we're willing to listen, and we're also trying to gently influence change, as opposed to just ticking a box.
I think you need to add some point to this, because we have so many other discriminations as well. We have a layered discrimination of caste as well, which is a psychological discrimination. Obviously, systemic discrimination, which turned into a psychological discrimination. Now, how do we bring people together? Not have any sort of like, you know, this tokenism needs to get out. And I've noticed a lot, even in, you know, different groups, that this is constantly happening in different venues and different spaces. And how do we change this? What do we do in like south of India or Chennai for that matter?
I'm going to take Chennai as an example because I can only speak for what I've done and examples that I've learned from. The whole reason why people do tokenism, at least in Chennai, that I can speak for, is because they want to preserve a self-image. The self-image that I am inclusive, the self-image that I care. It's again an identity-focused, oppressive manipulation. And when you are working towards the preservation of self-image, you are acting on the animal within you. All of us are animals. And the layer above that is being human. Yeah. And animals can only operate from two domains: avoid pain, embrace pleasure. So when I'm trying to preserve my self-image, that, you know, I'm good, I'm inclusive, I'm trying to tick a box here, I'm trying to include all sorts of societies, and I'm trying to see if I can provide a thali meals of sorts in the form of the experience that I'm providing, what I'm literally trying to do is avoiding pain. I don't want questions, I don't want people coloring me, I don't want people asking me unnecessary things. That's it. Now let's look at the other side. If you are a human being, you will operate from what is right and what is wrong. Something can give me pain, but I will still do it because that's the right thing to do. And human beings have the ability, better than animals, to provide leadership. And leadership is about taking control. I know I might sound slightly different from other respondents, but there are two areas in any, if you take an event per se, or if you want to create a systemic change, there is an area of concern and then there is area of control. If you keep expanding the area of control, then everything that's a concern will come into your control. If you try operating from the area of concern, then your area of control shrinks. Everything that's in your control also will start slipping away. So one must take control. And that leadership is what in pockets that I actually see in Chennai. Like for instance, what Think Music has been doing for the last 13 years. You know, what Paranjit has been doing with Neelam. What A.R. Rahman is trying to do. Taking control. One must take control. And when they take control, the audience will follow them. And when they start following, it's a sign of leadership. It's not a sign of self-image. That somebody is wanting to do something different, and therefore I would want to stand up. And in these examples that I just said, you know, including SPIH for that matter, it is not the leader or the face. It is about what they are standing for. It is the qualities that they are wanting to stand for. So they come with a decision-making framework, and that decision-making framework then decides who is exceptional. They only happen to be gender, happen to be from a community, happen to be everything else. So you uplift people beyond their identity for what they are exhibiting. And what they are exhibiting could be exceptional talent, exceptional performance, exceptional involvement, exceptional human expression. And I think that leadership is what is the actual solution. If things have worked, and for our personal quiz for that matter, if we were to look at certain festivals and say, I love that festival because it wouldn't be for diversity and inclusion. It would actually be for the great learning experience or for the exceptional showcasing that they actually did. And where we are in respect for what we received, and we have great gratitude for what we gave. And therefore, it is very important to believe that we need leadership, especially in Chennai. There are people who are doing great things. Number two, take things into your control and put a decision-making framework to stand up for excellent work being showcased. And in that excellent work, whoever is the right person should be there. And therefore, you're not deciding based on backgrounds, identities, economic strata, social status, or anything. You're only looking for what is that in that human being that is useful in that environment, and can I actually use that human being in that environment to the best of their capabilities and treat them like a human being. That's very important. So I tell this to a lot of my team members. Your success is my moral responsibility. Your happiness is not. Your happiness is in your hands. And therefore, exceptionalism must take over tokenism for people to stand up. They must take responsibility, and leadership is a huge responsibility. And that's my response.
So I think on that note, I think we can see how this dialogue gets into the society from where we are, from two different places. And I've learned quite a bit from both of you all today. And I would definitely, Charlotte, I would really love to visit Oem Music Center.
Would love to have both of you. And I heard you say that you were at the Great Escape. I've been there as well. So if we ever get back, we'll have to meet up and talk more. And obviously it would be you both would be very, very welcome here. We would love to see you. And sorry to I don't want to go on, but Ratheesh, there is a cinema in Belfast called the Strand Arts Center, and it's an old cinema, 1920s Art Deco, and they've turned it into it's a cinema, but it's also an arts centre. So they're doing something similar to what you talked about. They do outreach and arts programs, and then they have these different programs of cinema. So it just reminded me of them when you were talking there. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in.
I learned a lot, Charlotte, from you. It was just a great revelation listening to you.
Likewise, and like I say, we're still learning here because we've sort of got a lot of stuff to sort out in terms of the last 40 years in an Indigenous level. But I'm so excited about how much more diverse we're coming, and there are amazing people doing great work. We have a fantastic festival here called the Mela, which is just probably the premier kind of cultural celebration every year. And great people doing great work in diversity, and we're just doing our bit, but we're trying to, on a small level, just trying to influence change,
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Ratheesh, for your time. There's a lot to take away from this episode, and I'm really, really glad this dialogue has started. Big thanks to British Council, Roshni, Tom, for bringing Charlotte on board. Thank you, Ratheesh, for always being a big supporter of anything independent and culture bending. Hope to bring more conversations that build bridges for more enhanced cultural connectivity. So the next episode will be hosted by my colleague, Ofro. They'll be digging deep into the internet currency for artists. Thank you for listening. Take it easy.